It's
The dawn of a new age.
Oh my god.
Hello. Hey, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you're doing awesome. I'm doing okay. I just had a delicious little lunch. It was a tuna salad sandwich with the carrots, with a little bag of carrots, some lime LaCroix. You know, I put a little bit of cream cheese on some toast, served it up. It was delicious. But hey, everybody. My name is Chase, and this is the New Age Comics Podcast. I hope you're doing awesome. Like I said, today is an amazing Thursday evening, afternoon. I never know the difference. At what point is it evening versus afternoon? Because it's still after 12 noon in the evening. Anyway, it is a nice afternoon. In my cold state right now, I'm sitting by a window and it's freezing. I might have to go put some socks on or something. But this is not a podcast about the weather or about just my day. It's about something specific. We're here to talk everything comic books. This is your weekly, podcast update, I guess you could say. But a couple little stipulations this time. This one is late. I am coming at you with comics that dropped on the 3rd, I believe, of February. So as I talk about these comics, there are new comics out, but oh well, that's just the grind. I'm catching up and I'm almost there, so bear with me. But another thing, this is going to be a very short episode, and I can get into a little bit of that later. But for those that are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk all things comics. Basically, I got a little bit of comic news for you. Got an interesting story here about a recalled comic. And then I'm going to talk about a bunch of these comic books. I can get a little ASMR. Boom, all the comics. Got a big old stack. And I got a lot of awesome books this week. Tons of great books. So stay tuned if you want to hear about that. I am throwing out a spoiler warning. I spoil all the comics that I talk about during the pod. So please, if you do not want to get these things spoiled for you, just go read them and come back. But like I was saying, why is this going to be a short episode? Well, there's a reason for that. I use a service to upload all my podcasts every month, and I don't really know how to put it. You only have an allotted amount of time every month, and this month I am almost at my end. See, I produce a WandaVision recap podcast. You guys can go listen to that if you so please, and because of that podcast, it like doubled the amount of podcasts that I was putting out every week, which was 1, and now I'm putting out 2 every week. So some of those have ran a little long, and it just made a little time crunch. But you guys shouldn't have a problem with a shorter episode. I'll just be brief in my thoughts. You know, brevity is the soul of wit, all that shit. I'm not very witful. But last couple things to plug before I get up into the news segment. You can go follow me on Twitter. Check out all my Twitter antics. I was getting in, oh God, it's like a fight every week now. No, it's not really fights, but I tweeted something horny, something on some mommy dom type shit. If you're curious as to what that is, you can go to my Twitter, scroll down a little bit. And also, if you are a regular listener of the pod, our friend Ian, who I frequently mention and who does some of the X podcasts with me, he just got on Twitter as like at xmank42 or something ridiculous. So I guess you can follow him if you want. I don't think he's gonna be tweeting much. But last little thing, hey, leave me a rating on Podchaser if you really love the show. If you're feeling generous, you don't have to. Subscribing, liking, all that, following is plenty. But anyway, let's get into the news. So this very stack of comics that I'm holding right here contains one comic that is now a member of, I guess you could say, a small amount of comics. It's a part of an exclusive club, and that club is Recalled Comics. And this specific comic was recalled by Marvel, and this is Immortal Hulk, issue number 43. This isn't a common occurrence. You know, comics do not get recalled that often, because there are few reasons that they really need to be recalled. If there is just some, coloring error or some typo or something, they're not going to recall it. Generally, comics get recalled when there's something in there that's offensive. Usually that's the connecting theme, something that the company maybe just wants to, leave behind and forget. And it happened again this week, and I'll get into the details of it, but like I said, it was Immortal Hulk issue number 43, and what happens in this scene that it gets recalled in, Joe Fixit, who's controlling Bruce Banner's body at the time, he walks into a jewelry shop. The name of this jewelry shop, as you can see in the backwards text on the window in the shop, and it is called Cronenberg Jewelry. It's seen in reverse on the window with a Star of David below it. I mean, this should jump out to some of you, but very clearly that is an example of maybe a harmful Jewish stereotype, right? Essentially the idea, as Comics XF pointed out, and I'll just read what he says because he puts it quite elegantly. They say, the only conceivable interpretation, to put it frankly, is that this is a visual play on the old anti-Semitic trope of Jews running the diamond business. This was immediately not a good look for Marvel, and fans immediately were also calling them out on it, saying, hey, what is this? Why is this? And the artist Joe Bennett, I guess, sort of took responsibility, you could say, for this scene and released an apology statement on Facebook. Now, I will say, I think his apology is actually really decent. I think as far as, I don't know, I guess you could compare this to celebrity apologies. It was really thoughtful, really understanding. And as he describes it, it seemed like an honest mistake. I will get into his explanation here. He intended to make the name, as far as the name goes, the Cronenberg Jewelry. He meant to have it more so say Cronenberg, which was supposed to be a reference to a horror film director, which was something he was trying to do in that scene. The director being David Cronenberg. However, the name was misspelled unintentionally, along with misspelling jewelry as jewelry. And Joe Bennett said that it was an honest but terrible mistake because he was writing backwards in the inside of the store, looking out the store side window. But all that being said, he said it was no excuse, especially for the inclusion of the Star of David. Joe Bennett's official statement reads, I failed to understand the troubling and offensive stereotype after listening to you all, and now I understand my mistake. This was wrong, offensive, and hurtful in many ways. This is a mistake I must own, and I am sorry to everyone who was hurt by this. I am working with Marvel to correct this, and am using this lesson to reflect on how I approach my stories and my work. Marvel also came out and had a statement with this, and where they basically said they fully acknowledge this mistake, and it was missed on their side as well. So I guess the editorial team is taking a little bit of blame for this, and what they're doing is they're re-releasing this comic since it's recalled. They're re-releasing it digitally and in print. With that, I don't know, with the words and the Star of David essentially just wiped away from it. I'll have the new and old image up on the YouTube video if that's where you're watching. So yes, this issue will get a reprint, and you can also return these comics to stores. I assume this is maybe with participating stores. I don't know if it's every single comic shop, but I think Marvel is essentially offering replacements or refunds for these offensive issues. Spinning out of this, the first thing that maybe comic collectors are going to think is that now this offensive issue, including this problem, is going to essentially become a collector's item, which is the case for all recalled comics. So, I mean, this is just how it goes. And as far as collecting goes, we should all understand that collecting, in essence, is finding things with less of themselves in circulation, if that makes sense. So there will now be a limited amount of these misprinted, if you will, issues of Hulk that are now in circulation. And so, of course, they will become rare simply because collectors will seek after them, and there will be fewer of them than the new reprinted editions. But I digress. I heard a lot of people talking about there was a huge fan outcry, which of course there was. However, I woke up to this news of this comic being recalled like pretty early on Wednesday morning. So I don't know how long the comic was even out. So I guess I'm saying I don't know how much the fans really did have time to outcry. It seems like Marvel and Joe Bennett caught it pretty quickly and released statements pretty quickly and recalled it pretty much the very morning. So I guess good on Marvel for that. And like I said, it seems like Joe Bennett is very reflectful and respectful of his understanding. And it seemed like an honest mistake. Not that it's okay, and it's definitely not. So an interesting topic for today's news segment, something I won't, I guess, get to cover all that often because it's not every day that a comic gets recalled. But that being said, I'm going to be covering my thoughts on the issue itself down in the episode here. Now, getting into the comics for this episode, I got a big old stack here, and there's so many in the pile that I just cannot wait to talk about. And first, I'm going to be starting with King in Black books this week. I have 3 of them for us that I am amped to talk about. But before I get into my thoughts on these books, I'm just going to shout out that this is sort of an anniversary milestone episode. It is the 25th episode of the weekly podcast. So I've been covering comics here for 25 weeks straight. That means I've passed the 6-month marker. So hey, shout out to you who all have been listening. It's amazing. I love doing this. So thank you guys, and let's get into the books here. So first off, I'm talking Venom issue number 33. And I was fucking up on the last episode, not dropping creator names because I suck, but I got them all written down here. All right, so I'm going to be good about it this episode. Venom 33, written by Donny Cates, drawn by Ivan Coelho, and colors by Jesus Aburtov. I was talking to some people about this comic. This is our second to last, right? No? Yeah? I don't know. Venom is ending at issue 200. I don't know if I've talked about that on the podcast yet, but Venom's ending at issue 200 in terms of the legacy number, and this is 198. So we only have 2 more issues of Donny Cates' Venom left. Totally crazy, totally nuts. I don't even know how to react to all of that. It's all ending with King in Black. I'm kind of freaking out. How was this King in Black tie-in? Because Venom 33, of course, is a tie-in. As far as the Venom tie-ins go, we've been following Eddie. He has been going through a lot. He's been falling, he's been dying, and now he's in the God Hive. It's one of my main, obviously, takeaways from this issue. If you've read it, you will know what I'm talking about. It is a humongous crazy new piece for Venom lore that I have to just mention. That is that if you've had the symbiote, if you've been connected to the symbiote, apparently you are I think I'm interpreting that you're some degree of immortal, and you can go to this God Hive after you die, and you're sort of just this like husk, and you can be revived. It's weird. It's Venom continuity. It's getting more complicated by the day, but Flash Thompson, he's here as Anti-Venom. He's kicking ass, and we get an amazing end to Flash Thompson's, I guess, story arc as told by Donny Cates, which is just amazing. It ends with this super awesome panel, and like I said, I'm doing spoilers, but he turns into the Anti-Venom dragon. It's so fucking cool. Like my probably my page of the week, my spread of the week. But then, I mean, last thoughts, that ending there with Noel showing up. Holy shit. I don't know what the fuck that means or how that's going to go, or if are we getting King in Black 4 before we get Venom, what would that be, 34? I don't know. We're all on our toes here, and Venom is keeping us that way. So great book. I mean, it's this whole event has just been amazing as I continue through it. Return of the Valkyries issue number 2. This is written by Jason Aaron and Torun Gronbeck, drawn by Nina Vacueva, and colors by Tamra Bonvillain. So the Return of the Valkyries is an interesting tie-in, I think, for King in Black. It has a lead-in from the main event, which is that Sentry, who died in the first issue of the event. Sorry for the spoiler, I guess, for those that maybe have not read it, but you're messing up if you haven't. Apparently, the Valkyries have something to do with reviving Sentry or something along those lines. He's been featured throughout all the covers. He was featured pretty predominantly in the first issue. However, I have to say, in this second issue, I could have used more Sentry, and I only say that because we got literally 0. Like, he just wasn't in this issue at all, which made the cover feel kind of like clickbait because it says, "To save the soul of Sentry." I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the plot here, and that Sentry is actually implicated throughout it all. But, I mean, this has been a cool tie-in. I guess it's getting a little disconnected from King in Black. We're only really seeing Jane Foster fight Venoms and Venom dragons and shit. We're also getting Donnie, I think is her name. She's one of the New Mutants, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure she's a mutant. And now she's involved, which I guess is cool, but I'm just like, where's Sentry? Where's the symbiotes? Let's kick some ass. And there's another like side plot going on in here with one of the other Valkyries, which I really like the story. But I guess I'm just like, what does this have to do with King in Black? I don't know. We have, I think, either 1 or 2 more issues of Return of the Valkyries, and I'm definitely keeping up with it because the story is interesting, and of course, it's some Aaron classic goodness. So for my last King in Black book this week, I'm talking Black Knight. King in Black, The Black Knight, issue number 1. It's a one-shot. This is written by Simone Spurrier. I don't believe that's how you say that. Spurrier. with art by the amazing Jesus Saiz. I thought this King in Black, Black Knight was easily the best Venom tie-in of the week, guys. Like, hands down, no contest. This was an amazing issue. So to begin, cover by Dan Mora, you're always going to get points from me for that. Okay. But then I love Jesus Saiz art. I think it was perfect for a Black Knight pitch because Black Knight deals in the medieval, deals in the Victorian themes so well. And I think his art being kind of realistic in tone accompanies that super, super well. I'm familiar with his art from the Mark Waid Doctor Strange run, another great run with his art on great display there. But this issue, what makes it so great? Well, it does a couple great things. It feels like a tie-in because he really is tying into the events of King in Black. He's fucking up some Venom dragons. But not only that, it gives us a perfect snapshot into Black Knight as a character. I'm not a huge Black Knight reader. This will be my first Black Knight centric book that I've ever purchased. But the great thing about that is not only do I get to know Black Knight super well, I also get to know some featured characters here that I can only give this credit here to Simone Spurrier, because he worked in Arrow and Swordsmaster, two heroes that I was completely not familiar with at all. I knew of them, but I never picked up their books. I knew they were getting some comics back in the day, but they just weren't, I don't know, I just didn't know anything about them. Decided to skip on them. Now I'm kind of regretting that because these two are really cool. I really dig Arrow and Swordsmaster. I love the hilarious trichotomy. Is that what you would call it? The trichotomy of these three. Just a hilarious trio. And Black Knight is actually dealing with some interesting, I guess character stuff in this issue that makes it even feel impactful near the end here. It's a long book. This is I believe a $5 book. It is really dense in terms of its dialogue, but it's one of those things where I say that to be a great thing because the dialogue in here is amazing. It is genuinely funny. You guys, I know I'm very strict on the funny comics. I do not fall for the jokes really like that. But this one actually had me yucking a little bit here. And it led up to an amazing, touching piece with Black Knight, how he has always struggled with this ebony blade. It's this whole lore thing with him and how it's the blade that corrupts you. There's a lot with Null here, and apparently how he connects to the original Merlin ebony blade. It's crazy. Like this arc has a lot of tie-ins to the Black Knight lore that I just wasn't expecting, and I was really happy to see. So it just has a great ending, and I hope to see more Black Knight, not only in King in Black, but also in his upcoming little 5-parter that I'm definitely going to be getting now. So that's very exciting. Gotta love that. And another great week for King in Black. Kind of flip-flopping here away from Marvel into DC, but away from event books as well. I'm talking just the main DC continuity right now. I guess it's not the main continuity, but the non-future state books, as I now have to specify. We got 2 this last week. One was Black Label's HellBlazer Rise and Fall issue number 3, as well as Man-Bat, the new 6-parter. I'll start with Man-Bat. This was written by Dave Wilegaz, is maybe how you say that, with art by Sumit Kumar, who you should recognize if you've been picking up the Next Batman books, who's been doing the art in the Outsiders mini, which we got some Next Batman this week. I'll be talking about the Outsiders portion because it was amazing. But as far as the Man-Bat book goes, I really liked this. I love Man-Bat as a Batman villain. I think he's one of his most interesting, one of his most heartfelt, I guess you could say, one of his most personable. You know, he's definitely one of his most tragic. I mean, that is a tall order. But, you know, we've seen, what's his name again? Kirk Langstrom. We've seen Kirk Langstrom teeter on villain versus victim here and there. And that is the line that I love that this book treads. It really shows you how Man-Bat is definitely villainous as fuck when he's all batted up. But it also shows you how he's also kind of innocent, and he's definitely a tragic story, tragic character, dealing with a lot. You get see a lot about his personal life in here with his wife. It's all very sad. It makes me want to give Man-Bat a hug, you know? And there's even some great lines in here about Kirk Langstrom asking Batman, did the bat control your life as well? Or did it destroy your life? Something along those lines. The writing in here is great. It definitely sets you up for a really fun little 6-parter here. And like I said, it's sort of out of continuity in terms of they specifically do mention that this takes place before Dark Knight's Death Metal and Future State. So if you are sick of Future State, you hate all that shit, and you also are like, man, we get too many Batman books, I say pick this one up, because while it is a Batman book, it's about a underrepresented, underloved character in the Batman world. And it's also not Future State. So great book. Definitely going to be picking up the next 5 issues or whatever. We'll see how it goes. Now, next I am talking about this HellBlazer Rise and Fall issue number 3. Written by Tom Taylor, drawn by Derek Robertson, drawn and colored by Derek Robertson. So this book has been fucking amazing. I have to say that. I mean, it's a Black Label book. I love Black Label. It has so many fun adult themes. You know, Tom Taylor getting to write Constantine, but getting him to call people a wanker and a fucker. It's all amazing, right? With Derek Robertson's gory, gross, bloody art. God, you couldn't fathom a more perfect book, right? This is a magazine style book, so it's all big and it's all thick, but I love that about it. This is a perfect hardcover once the hardcover drops. If you guys slept on this series, you definitely need to read it, because I am going to say this is easily a contender for issue of the week. I loved HellBlazer Rise and Fall 3. I mean, the story has been nuts. It has to deal with John Constantine. Where do I even start with this? A kid died in his childhood, and now that kid is back as like the demon, and he's stealing angel wings, and he's trying to break into the gates of heaven. John Constantine slept with the devil. I mean, he's dealing with one of his friends who's a detective. It's just hilarious. It's super gory. And this issue, as the third and final, presents a perfect conclusion. It actually even provides you some heartfelt moments here. I mean, it's a big book, so going through all of it would definitely be a slog in terms of the listening experience. So I'll go through some of my favorite moments. There's this part where this demon bursts out of this guy's body and just starts mauling people brutally in the streets, which was quite gory. And while there's those dark moments, there's also hilarious moments, like when John goes to see his dad. He brings Satan along with him, and Satan and his dad end up bickering like instantly. But then Tom Taylor is such a talented writer, he can flip it on you just in one page, because then the next page, his dad slaps John. And it's this kind of sadder, darker scene about John's dad kind of just being alone and alienated. Of course, Satan brings his dad back and has him fix it all. It's just so hilariously written. It's such a fun story. It ends in perfect John Constantine fashion. You know, it connects a little bit to his heartfelt, I want to be a hero side, but he also gets to trick some demons and end up he has his friend cast a spell on him while he consumes Satan into his soul. I mean, it's just nuts. It's just nuts. My explanation should be enough. So some funny lines that I have to shout out here. One where they go to this like billionaire and they distribute all his money to everybody in the British Isles. Everyone gives everyone like 30K. His friend is like, can you imagine having the money to do this and you don't? And John Constantine just says, billionaires are the most worthless people on the planet. I fucking loved that. That was great. We also get a heartfelt moment here with this guy who died throughout the series as like a soul. He's wandering the earth and kind of walks off into the sunset. It's all very cute. John Constantine and Satan share a smooch here at the end. This one lady says, well, fuck me in the ear with a rabid poodle. I mean, is there anything else I have to say about this book? Oh yeah, I'll tell you one more thing. John Constantine puts on the crown of an angel who just splattered all over the ground, and that's the last page. So sorry for the spoiler there, but if you haven't been reading it and that description, it sounds awesome, go check it out. HellBlazer Rise and Fall is super fun. DC, give Tom Taylor a HellBlazer ongoing series. I'm going to start lobbying right now. Okay, so turning away from DC, back to Marvel, but also into their non-event books. These are just Marvel's normal, non-King in Black books that I'm talking. I got 3 here for you. Avengers issue number 42, Legend of Shang-Chi issue number 1, and like I foreshadowed, Immortal Hulk issue number 43. I will start with Avengers. This book has been very controversial. It was written by Jason Aaron, of course. He's been the Avengers scribe for the last couple years. Art here by Luca Maresca, and colors by David Curiel. So this book ruffled some feathers. I mentioned this last week on the podcast, so I'll kind of just lead with that here. I'll lead with that. However, that's the last page of this book. Thor's mother gets retconned sort of in this book as the Phoenix. But that being said, now that I've read the book, right? So I made all my arguments in defense of it before I'd even read the book. I will fully admit that. But now that I've read issue number 42, what the fuck were y'all freaking out about? It did not seem like a big deal to me what happened in this book. And it was also, and here's what I'll say. The retcon appeared on the last page. It was the last page, guys. That's the number one rule in comics. Last page doesn't count. It just does not count. The last page, it just straight up is void because it always gets undone in the next comic, right? I don't know. That's what I'll say about that. But as far as this issue goes, it's part 3 of the Enter the Phoenix event. And here we just get to see pretty much more of the same in the last issue, which was Phoenixified Avengers and heroes fighting and squaring off for the Phoenix powers. I thought it was a fun issue this time. It featured a couple really unique fights that I thought were out of the park. I mean, we get to see a little bit of foreshadowing that Namor is sort of the one who is setting himself up to be the next Phoenix. Like, he's really gunning for it. Meanwhile, Shang-Chi kicks Cap's ass because Shang-Chi is like uncorrupted by the Phoenix Force. It's a great panel. That's the one I will be displaying there for you guys on the YouTube video. Shang-Chi is just fucking awesome. I love his portions in this event. They're great. And then, I mean, that's pretty much all we get until the end. We get a little more fighting, a little more Phoenixified Avengers, and then the moment that everyone's freaking out about. I don't know. I think y'all need to relax. But speaking of Shang-Chi, I also picked up Legend of Shang-Chi issue number 1. This was written by Alyssa Wong, drawn by Andy Tong, and colors by Rachel Rosenberg. I am unfamiliar with all these creators and picked this book up just because I loved the last Shang-Chi series that Marvel was putting out. It was a mini series. It was fun as hell. Taught you a lot about Shang-Chi. I just love Shang-Chi. He's a cool ass character. I got to know him first time I ever read any Shang-Chi was the Marvel Knights series titled Marvel Knights. And Shang-Chi's a main in that one. The story actually kind of takes place around him. And it's a great series. Totally love it. Chuck Dixon is one of my childhood, I don't know, comic guys. I know he's kind of a weird alt-right figure these days, but anyway, I'm not gonna speak ill on Chuck Dixon's name. I don't know what I'm talking about. Moving into Legend of Shang-Chi number 1. This issue is a one-shot, and I think that is a crime against men and women around the world. This was an amazing one-shot. I loved this book so much. It was so fun. Andy Tong's art was perfect for Shang-Chi, just action-packed, did the movement and all of that great. And the plot here, I don't know. I guess you could say it was a perfect one-shot plot because the plot is essentially, hey, Shang-Chi, I'm your girlfriend in MI6. Lady Deathstrike just stole an ancient sword that steals people's souls. And he was like, all right, I'm on the case. And I mean, yes, that is a simple plot. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, come on. This issue was fun as fuck. I mean, we just get to see Shang-Chi and Lady Deathstrike square off for this sword the whole issue. I don't know. I was very much enjoying this comic. I mean, that's sort of the way I don't know, I judge enjoyment of a comic is quite literally how much fun do I have while I'm reading it? How much do I enjoy what I'm reading? There's no, I don't know, technical setup that I'm working with to rate a comic. It's just how much fun do I have? And I had a lot of fun reading this Legend of Shang-Chi. It was just a blast. It had a cliffhanger ending here. Then I'm like, you bastards, come on. If you knew it was a one shot, why you got to cliffhang me like that? So I don't know. I hope we get a continuation of this. I guess we're getting some more Shang-Chi later down the year. So, hey, hopefully we can continue that a little bit. But now moving into the controversial book of the week, Immortal Hulk, issue number 43. I'm not going to talk much about the, I don't know, I guess the controversy, right? Because I already went over that in the news segment there. But as far as this book goes, and I tweeted about this, I actually did like this issue. I thought this issue did a lot of great stuff. To me, it made Immortal Hulk a little more simpler. I've been joking here and there how goddamn confusing this story is and convoluted it's gotten. But but I think this book does a lot to make it just simple and understandable. Essentially, Joe Fixit is wandering around in Bruce's body. The main Hulk and Bruce Banner, they're locked away, so all we got is Joe Fixit and the skinny, scrawny Hulk. And they're just kind of making ends meet. Joe, the whole jewelry scene is because he steals a bunch of money from someone and goes and buys some diamond necklaces and goes and sells them to a pawn shop. And that's what happens. And I mean, I love that dynamic that Joe Fixit talks about in this book, where he's like, Bruce doesn't know what I do to get us money. He just lets me take over and I just do it. But that being said, the end here was on some jaw dropping. I loved the cliffhanger because we meet this whole team called the UFOs. And basically the idea was the second Hulk goes Hulk, these UFO guys were going to pop up and show up, and boom, there they did it. And they did it at the end. Very pumped for the next book. It's going to hopefully be a issue of the week contender easily. But last thing, I forgot to shout out the creative team there. Caught myself. Al Ewing, of course, Joe Bennett on the pencils, and Paul Mounts on the colors. Marvel did great this week. But moving into our last little segment. I call this the last little segment when I think it's actually the segment that's going to be the largest here out of all of them, but maybe you've all been waiting for it. It is the DC Future State part, where I'm talking all the Future State books that dropped this week. I got 4 of them. I got Swamp Thing, issue number 2, Superman Metropolis, issue number 2, The Next Batman, issue number 3, and Wonder Woman, issue number 2. A lot of books that I've talked about, that I've raved about in the past. Let's get into them. I'm starting with Swamp Thing, number 2. Written by Ram V, drawn by Mike Perkins, colors by June Chung. I liked this book. I liked this Swamp Thing mini. I thought it was probably one of the strongest ones. However, I have to say this. I thought the story was quite confusing. Quite confusing. That could be me because I have critical slow brain syndrome. No, I'm just playing. I am not the smartest tool in the tool shed. I'll put it like that. And so when stories get really complex and really nuanced, I'll be one of the first people to say, hey, I got lost. I will own that. However, I think this story still creates something really exciting where part of me, even though I can get really confused reading, I've also mastered the art of being able to back away a little bit from the details of the book and just look at the overall what's going on. And if you look at the overall what's going on, this story has a great ending. It ends with Swamp Thing making a sacrifice for humankind on the the soul of the green type shit. I mean, it's just an amazing ending here. And so I hope Ram V kind of keeps things, I don't know, I hope he can simplify things for people like myself that are not the sharpest tool in the shed. Upcoming in his Infinite Frontier Swamp Thing ongoing series that I'm super pumped for. And I mean, I always am going to say this, I love Mike Perkins. God, I feel like I'd have to go back and do a little research, but I'm pretty sure Mike Perkins is one of the first few artists that I personally fell in love with. But I digress. I'm super excited for that Swamp Thing ongoing. Moving into my next book, Superman of Metropolis, issue number 2. This has a big creative team on it, and I'll just list it all off here. We got writing by Sean Lewis and Brandon Easton. Pencils done by John Timms, Valentine Landro, and Coley Hammer. And then colors, I think all the colors in the book might be done. I could be wrong about this, but I think they all might be done by Gabe Al-Taib. This is one of those multi-story books, right? They've sort of fractured the Superman Future State mythos into a good amount of books, actually. We got this book, the Superman of Metropolis. We got the old Clark Kent Worlds of War. We got the Imperious Lex. We got the Superwoman. There's a lot. But I'm picking up this one, and I think it actually had a stronger ending than it did a beginning. The first book left me a little lukewarm. I kind of was just like, I don't know how I feel about John Kent as Superman. It's just not as fun for me, a little weak. But I think Sean Lewis, who writes this first Superman part, he did a good job teaching us why we should like John independently, I guess, of Clark. I'm kind of a fresh slate when it comes to John Kent, and so I learned to love him a little bit in this book here, and I thought that was great. I also think Kara, her portrayal is amazing in this book. It's super thoughtful, super great. Her and John have an interesting dichotomy. And I think the story with the brain cells stuff was really cool, alongside the whole Metropolis getting shrunk down, kind of like the Kandor. I mean, there's just a bunch of great layers. Of course, John has to fight all these robot things of his father. I mean, it's all a very epic Superman-esque story here at the end. But of course, everything gets restored to normal. And the thing I think that sold me at the end, because John, he approaches all of Metropolis saying, I fucked up. I did wrong. I did not do the right thing by y'all. And that is, I don't know, I guess he just lays his sins bare, but he's like, I'm still your Superman. And it was just a really, I don't know, cute ending. So I really enjoyed that, and I'm really looking forward to PKJ, Philip Kennedy Johnson, taking over the Superman mythos come March. And another thing to look forward to come March that also gets, I guess, displayed a little bit in the end here is the Mr. Miracle mini. I won't say a whole lot on it, but I really did dig it. I'm going to be getting the Mr. Miracle ongoing series once that comes out, I think more so in April. But I think these parts, I don't know, these little after stories that not only this Superman and Metropolis book, but also the Superman Worlds of War book, they all had little Mr. Miracle parts in them. And I think all of them were really strong. The art is really good here. It's that simple, thick, penciled art that I love. We get to know the new Mr. Miracle character, who is really dope. This ending here was a little confusing. I did not fully understand it. I think it's supposed to tie into the Worlds of War book. So I'll say more on that once it all makes sense. But then moving lastly into the Guardian book, this is actually written by Sean Lewis as well. And I really liked this little Guardian mini. I would love to see Guardian get incorporated into the Superman mythos come March. I think that would be great. He's an interesting character. He's essentially like Cap. And I like how this Guardian book tied itself into the events of the John Kent stuff. That's been my main critique of Future State, is it's all felt really disconnected, discombobulated. But the Superman mythos story stuff has been, I think, trying to do right by me, if you will. It's been doing right by me, I think. Another huge book that I have to talk about, that is the Next Batman issue number 3. Another big creative team for this one. I got John Ridley, Brandon Thomas, and Paul Jenkins writing. Then I got art by Laura Braga, Sumit Kumar, and Jackson Herbert. The Next Batman, you know what, guys? I have to say this, and I think I led into this a little bit in the last podcast, or maybe 2 podcasts ago when I last talked about Next Batman. Next Batman has gotten a little mid for me, personally. And I hate to say it, you know, I really loved the first issue. I thought the first issue was super strong, with art by Nick Dearington, and the story in that book was just super compelling. These kids in a Bane gang. I can't rave about it enough, because I think it frustrates me, because it felt like the story for Next Batman went somewhere completely separate and completely unrelated on John Ridley's part. I don't know why he chose to do this. Maybe he's going to tie it back in, but that's the thing. We only get one more Next Batman book. And I don't know, I just feel like the first issue was the only one you needed to read so far, because now we're getting into this plot about this married couple that killed someone, and they wore a mask, so now the peacekeepers are after them. I don't know. It would not for me. I think the story went somewhere kind of weak. I think it missed a really big point of establishing a villain that's not just the Peacemaker, or not establishing the Peacemakers enough. I don't know. I think the Next Batman book could have been better, in my opinion. Well, I'll move on from that into, this is actually, I think, the highlight of this Next Batman series, and that is the Outsiders book here that is written by Brandon Thomas and art by Sumit Kumar. I thought this Outsiders book did amazing things. It worked with 3 great characters, Black Lightning, Katana, and in this one, we got to see a lot from, was it Duke? Yeah, Duke Thomas, right? Sumit Kumar's art is totally amazing, and what they're doing with Black Lightning in this book is super awesome. Won't lie, is a little confusing. Like I said, not the sharpest tool in the shed, but what they're doing with Black Lightning is a lot of fun. He's like full lightning mode, and by the end of this book here, we get to see some more lightning sword action, kind of on Duke's part. It looked like they were working to revamp Duke's character as a whole. I hope they do. I hope they continue with this Outsider stuff into the Infinite Frontier. But then lastly here, and this actually might be one of the best highlights too. So of all the Next Batman books, I have to say the Outsiders and the Arkham Knights minis were really great. The Arkham Knights stuff is written by Paul Jenkins, who's, definitely an A-list writer. But this Arkham Knights book is just tons of fun. It's essentially all our Arkham villains that we love so much. They jailbreak and they cause a fucking ruckus. What more could you want from that? And they even tie in some really heartfelt stories in where they're like, we're psychopaths, but like, this is our city, because now Gotham is all future fucked in police state. So you're almost like, fuck yeah, let the crazies win a little bit. And Paul Jenkins did really great on the story. He worked with a lot of awesome characters. The Dr. Phosphorus little arc in there. Mwah, chef's kiss. Anyway, moving into my last book here. I gave this book my number one issue of the week when the first one came out, and that is the new Future State Wonder Woman. But this time we're talking issue number 2. This is the follow-up, written and drawn by Joelle Jones and colors here by Jordi Belair. The first book, like I said, phenomenal. We're getting to meet a new Wonder Woman. Her name is Yara Flor. Everyone's losing their mind over her. They're peeling their eyelids back and forth. They're crying. They're coming. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone loves Yara Flor. Everyone's simping really hard for her. And I get why. She's an awesome character. I guess you could say, low expectations for her because I'm not a Wonder Woman guy. So this is my first Wonder Woman book. And I have to say, I'm very pleased. The story here went somewhere very different than I thought it was. I thought that Yara Flor was retrieving Diana from the events of Death Metal 7. I know that Diana has a Future State book. I didn't pick it up, so excuse me. Shame on me as a podcast host. But that's where I thought Yara was going. When she was talking about getting her sister back, I thought she meant Diana. I was wrong. She meant her actual sister, which was almost a pleasant surprise story-wise, because I guess to me, since I had a different expectation, it was kind of a twist, but it was a twist that also made me like Yara on a personal side a little more, you know what I mean? And it's something that's making me feel like, okay, I should definitely pick up her book come March. I think she's getting a Wonder Girl book or something along those lines. But she travels down into like Hades' realm to try and revive her sister. It has a very tragic ending because her sister does not make it out with her and kind of dies again. It's sort of sad. And I think the way that the ending is spun here by Joelle Jones was really, really nice. The note that it ends off here on is that heroes are heroes despite their imperfections. So despite their failures, it created at least an emotional connection for me that's definitely going to keep me invested and going to keep me coming back into Wonder Girl's ongoing series. I definitely also got to shout out Joelle Jones's art. I love her art to death. There's a ton of hilarious scenes in this book with her art. Like she plays fetch with Cerberus pretty much by stealing like Death's hand, which is the bone, right? It's just hilarious. So I loved this Wonder Woman series by Joelle Jones. I don't know, even though I've had my gripes with Future State, I think this was maybe one of the stronger weeks of a lot of good content here. And unfortunately, the only one that I didn't really care for out of all the stories I've just talked about was the Next Batman little mini, because I liked, the Outsiders and I liked the Arkham Knights. But I don't know, Next Batman, I think maybe my expectations were too high for it, if I have to give you a definitive reason. So Future State, it's it's doing its thing.
Well, this was fun.
Until next time.
And that is sort of all I have for you guys today. Remember when I said this was going to be a short episode? Well, I guess I either lied or I'm just bad at keeping promises to myself. But this episode turned out to be a little longer than I hope it was. We'll see how that goes. You guys don't got to worry about my allotted time situation. Don't even think about it. But as promised, I'm going to deliver my top 5 ranking of the week here. So here it goes. For my number 5 spot, I am throwing it to Future State Swamp Thing issue number 2. For my number 4 spot, I'm giving it to Man Bat issue number 1. For my number 3, The Bronze Medal, Legend of Shang-Chi issue number 1. For that number dose spot, I have to throw this one to King in Black, Black Knight issue number 1. An amazing little one shot here. And for the number 1 spot, it had to be this one, guys. I mean, this was just an unbeatable book. It was almost not fair. HellBlazer Rise and Fall issue number 3. Tom Taylor, Derek Robertson. They were amazing with that series. I absolutely cannot get enough of some Black Label, HellBlazer, Tom Taylor. It's amazing. Please read it. Please read it in hardcover when it comes out. You won't be disappointed. Okay. Now I am at the sanctimonious part where I can talk about the books that I'm going to be talking about next episode, next week. And here is what I got for you. The thing is, these books have already dropped, so I already have them in my house. I could be looking at them right now for all you know. But what we're getting next week, here it goes. We're getting Dark Detective issue number 3. Super pumped for that. From the Future State line, of course, we're also getting Future State Justice League issue number 2. Aside Future State Teen Titans issue number 2, we're kind of wrapping up Future State here. We'll see how it sticks the landing. As far as non-Future State DC books go, we're also getting Rorschach issue number 5. I love that cover. We'll see how the interiors hold up. Then moving over to Marvel on the King in Black side, we're getting Daredevil issue number 27, the end of the Daredevil King in Black stuff. We're getting Thunderbolts issue number Dos. Super pumped for that. Sword issue number 3. We'll see how that goes. And then moving away from the event at Marvel, the just normal books, we're getting Eternals issue number 2. Super pumped for that. Taskmaster issue number 3, the return of the heavyweight here on the podcast. I've loved the last 2 issues of Taskmaster head to toe. We're also getting Wolverine Black, White, and Blood issue number 3, which I have high hopes for just off the creative team that's going to be tackling that book alone. And lastly, on the X tip, my X friends, we're getting X-Force issue number 17. At least I'm getting X-Force issue number 17. Some of y'all are probably getting some other X books, and that's okay. But that being said, thank you guys infinitely for listening. It means the world to me. I'm working on catching up to be on time at the moment, so I'm sorry if these episodes maybe sound scrambly or kind of just all over the place. I'm just trying to get them out there, right? Because I want to be back on the cutting edge, cutting edge of rock. No, the cutting edge of comics. Okay, anyway, guys, I will catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, do all that dumb shit. And I will see you next time. Later.